Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Tarkir Dragonstorm just released, and the first commander I wanted to check out is Ugin, Eye of the Storms, in this Colorless Eldrazi ramp deck, since this commander seems incredibly busted. A 7-mana Planeswalker with a passive ability saying whenever we cast Ugin or whenever we cast another colorless spell, we get to exile an opposing permanent that's one or more colors. So this cannot go after lands, since lands are colorless, but any other permanents that aren't colorless artifacts, for instance, are fair game, so Ugin can immediately decimate the opponent's board, since we can also play him and then use the 0 ability, adding triple colorless to our mana pool. So if we have any cheap cards left in hand, we can still cast them, triggering Ugin's passive ability a second time, so we can already exile 2 permanents just from that alone. And then Ugin has a +2 ability, gaining 3 life and drawing a card, and then the -11 ultimate is also quite achievable, just go to +2 twice and then we can set it up, and then we get to search our library for any number of non-land colorless cards, and then for the rest of the turn we get to cast those for free, so that will instantly win us the game as well. And I actually did pull it off in one of the games, so stay tuned for that. So Ugin is our commander. That means that we want to get to 7 mana as quickly as possible, which is why if we take a look at the deck breakdown, we've got a pretty big section dedicated to ramping, lots of mana artifacts that can tap for mana. So we've got those starting at 2 mana all the way up to 6 mana, where we've got cards like Dreamstone Hadron that can tap for triple colorless. And some of the more broken cards I want to point out here are Forsaken Monuments, which can essentially double the mana produced by our lands and most of our artifacts, and then a Paradox Engine, somehow still legal in Brawl, can also be incredibly powerful if we get to untap with a bunch of mana producing artifacts that we can then keep untapping over and over, as long as we have more spells we can cast from our hand. Then we've got kind of a miscellaneous section of creatures that can also scale as the game progresses, as we can cast them for just X = 1 in the case of Hangar Backwalker or Market Backwalker, but we can also sink additional mana into it if we top deck them late game and have access to a ton of mana, and in a pinch we can also cast them for X = 0 while we control Ugin, just to exile an opposing permanent, so that can also be worthwhile. And then we've got some additional card draw engines, some of which can help smooth out our draws early, some of which can take over late game in combination with Ugin, thinking of the Chain Veil letting us activate our Planeswalkers twice, so that can also speed up the -11 ultimate. Echoes of Eternity, another pet card of mine in these colorless decks, can also help us copy our creatures and trigger our abilities multiple times, so that can also be a lot of fun. And then last but not least, we've got additional finishers which we can hope to ramp into with Ugin's mana ability, and these include all the various Eldrazi Titans available on Arena. We've got multiple versions of Kozilek, Ulamog, and Emrakul, which will often close out the game for us. So that's our deck in a nutshell. Now normally I would go over every individual card to give you a more detailed breakdown, but since I've featured some Eldrazi decks pretty recently, I'll just refer to those in the video description if you want a more detailed breakdown, since there's a ton of overlap, so you'll hear my thoughts on every individual card. And of course, being a colorless deck, we get to run a ton of these utility lands. You could just fill your mana base with basic wastes, and that's fine in some matchups that might actually benefit you, but if you want to take that extra step, I recommend the lands on the right hand side the most, so I would prioritize those ones, especially the ones that let you scry 1 or surveil 1 when they enter the battlefield, and those are just commons that you can easily include, since those will help smooth out your draws. But we also have some other useful lands like Ugin's Labyrinth, which can also give you an extra mana, so that one's potentially worth crafting as well. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Glarb. So a Sultai deck, our hand's promising. Multiple cheap ramp cards, which is what we like to see. And then Fleshraker can maybe trigger to help ramp out Ugin. Speaking of Ugin, 6 mana Ugin is definitely easier to ramp into, since 2 mana ramp into 3 mana ramp will set it up for you. Whereas we're less likely to cast our 7 mana Ugin on turn 4. That being said, this one is a little bit more impactful. So I'll go with Talisman first. And then next turn we've got options. Could go Hadron into Fleshraker, or just Ugin and minus. Glarb is surveilling. possible they've got some counter spells. Yeah, given that we have an Emrakul, resolving the Hadron is actually more important, I think, than Ugin. 6 mana Ugin, that is. But if this resolves, we're still in great shape. Get to answer Glarb. And with a discount, next turn we can kind of go off. Casting Ugin, making mana to cast even more things afterwards. It's gonna be the deepest growth. That's acceptable. Alright, so step 1, I want to say cast Ugin, then Fleshraker, then Hadron, and take it from there. Exiling their god is also a pretty clean solution. So this will make mana. Cast Fleshraker. There's nothing left for us to exile, unfortunately. And this pluses. And that's good enough for now. And then next turn we can cast our Eldrazi. We've got the mana to redeploy Eye of the Storms if it does get removed. Show and tell. That's potentially a double-edged sword here. Yeah, I'll try Emrakul. Alright, Omniscience, fair enough. That is a good card to put in play. Iron Crag, I'll keep as a mana source, I think. Alright, we'll see if our opponent can win the game here with Omniscience. Titan of Industry is a good starting point. Probably blowing up the Hadron. And we cannot sack it in response, sadly. But we do control an Emrakul now. They've got 1 card left in hand that he can now cast at instant speed thanks to Leyline of Anticipation. Well, it's their own Emrakul. Was not expecting that. Now the good news is that at least Ugin cannot exile her own colorless permanents. So that sort of limits the damage they can do. Do I want to sack a spawn right now? It's probably fine to let them keep it. Ooh, Ulamog was probably a bad draw here, since now they can exile my permanents with it. Yeah, that's unfortunate. So that can exile my 2 Ugins. Or Emrakul. So yeah, they should get rid of my Emrakul. They instead got rid of my 2 Ugins. And then I guess Emrakul just attacks into Emrakul. And then we sacrifice our creatures as well. They did keep the Iron Crag as an artifact at least, that makes mana. But yeah, that was kind of the worst case scenario, drawing Ulamog. I guess Emrakul still would have attacked into Emrakul regardless. So it would have worked out better had I put Sire in play with the Show and Tell as opposed to Emrakul. But yeah, did not have Omniscience into Emrakul on my radar. And we're pretty bad at answering colorless permanents as it turns out. Labyrinth, I guess, can keep Emrakul at bay. So that could help. So then I guess our opponent also kept Ugin in exile instead of back to the command zone. So yeah, this is going to be incredibly tough. Without a commander. While our opponent controls Omniscience and Emrakul. I would not recommend that attack. The 1 ring gives us hope. So let me attack. Since yeah, this is not an equipment. Opponent's jumping. take 7. We're at max speed, so this now makes 2 mana. And I guess we'll activate now. Can start taking a blast zone. But yeah, the Surveil from Glarb is going to find all their curve toppers. This might be a new animation here, showing that we have protection from the One Ring. Baleful Mastery, pay 7 life at least. So our opponent's down to 5. And I'll take a Blast Zone. Or I could activate Fountain Port. What's more relevant? I guess Fountain Port could have also, activated Enclave and Response to draw a card. I'll make a fish now. Alright, Sundering Titan's gotta be good here, although I guess with Omniscience it doesn't really matter too much. So that's 8 mana. Emrakul can take out our Planeswalker pretty easily. But yeah, I'll cast a Sundering Titan regardless. And then they've got forests, swamp, island. Is that the best way we can split it up? Maybe take out all their blue sources. So the game continues. Beacon can gain more life with Karn. Emrakul's got to play defense. Ooh, Shifting Woodland, that's potentially bad for me. Ooh, and a Toxrill as well, so that's gonna take out our fish token for free. While shrinking down Sundering Titan. Fish token down. Alright, well, we gotta go digging here, I think. Karn can maybe just make a artifact token to protect us a little bit better. It's gonna be quite large. And if we use the +1, it's probably gonna die before we get a chance to get something significant. And then we're gonna wanna scry with Treasure Map. I guess I can still do that in my upkeep. And for now play a Matter Reshaper. Breach the Multiverse. Opponent can get our Emrakul back. Goes for Ulamog instead. Oh, we do get some triggers. Buried Rune can return an artifact. Opponent's down to 4. But now Ulamog can also mill us out in a couple attacks. So what are my hopes? Again, finding my own Emrakul. The other Emrakul, that is. That might do it. Forsaken Monument does give me a lot of extra mana. Maybe that's good enough. Also gains me life. And then I'll let Karn go. Draw, play Monuments, making sure we tap Lotus first, and any other colored mana. Celestus I'll wait to cast. So we get the extra trigger, and then now I could scry before we draw with the ring. Moonsilver Key can get like a Mightstone and a Weakstone. Yeah, maybe that's okay. Does answer Glarb, I guess. And draw with the ring. Play Key. Activates. Is there anything better we can get? Yeah, I guess Mightstone's the best one. Could also draw with it instead. Since it's more so that we need to find an out as opposed to trying to stop the opponent from amassing more stuff. So cast this, draw. Can also scry first. Inventor Sphere, I guess, can also get an artifact at will. Actually, should just see if there's the Paradox Engine left. Paradox Engine looks good here. Portal to Phyrexia could also be effective. But I imagine we can just combo off now with Paradox Engine and the One Ring to just draw through the entire deck. Maybe should have realized that sooner. So now I can probably afford to take out Glarb. So double tap Q to float all our mana. Can scry. Echo seems fun. Activate One Ring. And found Ulamog the Defiler. Alright, so we're kind of doing it here. Cast Portal. I guess Archive first also makes sense, so we start generating more mana. Double tap Q in response to the extra trigger. Portal triggers twice, although they do have some slug tokens they can sacrifice. They need to keep a blocker for my artifact token as well. And then the copy also triggers twice, so goodbye Ulamog. And we get to attack for the win. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Alesha. So kind of a red-black aggro deck with maybe some sacrifice synergy. Our hand's got some ramp cards and then some curve toppers. Possible we'll need more ramp because they might be able to take out Ornithopter. Possible they have some hand disruption. But yeah, I'll try it. Another mana creature is good to have. Probably waiting on the pylons to surveil. Because if I see a land on top right now, it's unclear whether or not I should keep it or put it on the bottom. Right, so we've got another land drop, that's good. We've got to play for next turn, either Palladium Mirror or Celestus, so I don't need to actively surveil. Opponent now with Inti. Alright, now I could potentially surveil one. Cavern of Souls, not a priority. And then I guess we'll try Palladium Mirror, because if it survives, we could cast Ugin next turn already. 4, 5, 6, 7. And then with the mana, cast a Celestus. So if they don't have removal, they could be in trouble here. Call against commands, the perfect answer, taking out both of my creatures. So that's a huge setback. I imagine that they kept their hands based on the strength of Call against command. And yeah, our hand is getting a little clunky now, with lots of expensive spells we're unable to cast. Next turn, I guess we're still looking at an Echoes of Eternity. Opponent's just filling the graveyard to set up Alesha, which can maybe get back a Seer Slicer or a Deep Cavern Bat for hand disruption. That's a good one too. So yeah, not loving my chances anymore after that Call against command. They're also applying a good amount of pressure. So I imagine they go Deep Cavern Bat first, take the Echoes. Kroxa makes me discard. Ulamog can go since we're furthest from casting it. And now Alesha. Trigger Raid. And our opponent just gets back Kroxa. Alright, in that case, I guess we get rid of the Sire, try and keep Echoes, and then hopefully Ugin can trigger afterwards. Emrakul is not quite getting cast here. Our opponent can keep getting back Kroxa, but we just need a land off the top now. Ripples has been doing a good job of filling the graveyard to enable Alesha. And they found a treasure map. Okay. So their opponent discarding Mishra. Exiling a Chainsaw. So we're down to 10. And now they're going for Deep Cavern Bats. But we found a land. So 2 triggers of Ugin. Exile, I imagine it's Alesha and Inti. Even though they can recast Alesha, they can also cast the Kroxa out of the graveyard. And those hit the hardest. Could also try and get rid of the Deep Cavern Bat, but then they'll find another way to make me discard Emrakul. I suppose I'm plussing and drawing a card too here. And then I should keep the token, I believe. They have Playcrafter, but they won't be able to get that back with Alesha right away. And there's a chance I'll be able to actually recast the other Ugin. And then, yeah, I think we're drawing. So they might be able to make me discard the Mutavault. Bedevil returns, I guess it just takes out Ugin. Alright, so not what we wanted to see. Although at least we're not dead. So Buried Ruin could get back Palladium Mirror. Is that gonna survive is the question. I guess as far as we know it might. Alternatively, what could I do here? Animate Crawling Barrens. Pump that up. But I guess we also get to copy the mirror thanks to the trigger here. So that's probably worth it. Just to get 2 copies. And then next turn we'll be able to recast Ugin. Opponent picks up a Baleful Mastery that can answer our Planeswalker once again. Yeah, this Ripples has been quite backbreaking. And our opponent's just gonna get rid of everything. At least we drew something in return. So I'll need to draw land to cast this. Which we did. So we're still in the game. And that's a lot of life gain coming our way now. So we're up to 26 life. And now we control 2 creatures with Annihilator 2. Hexproof from each color. They've already used their Edict effect, which would be a clean answer. So yeah, that was lucky. Getting to stabilize with Breaker of Creation. Opponent can still escape Kroxa at any point. But now we're not too worried about taking 3. So our opponent can redeploy Alesha. This time maybe getting back. I guess Direfleet Daredevil only looks at our graveyard. So opponent's just escaping Kroxa instead. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. Despite all the interaction here, we still get it done. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Yorion, blue-white flicker. This hand's an easy mulligan, way too many expensive spells. This I can try. Could still use some 3 or 4 mana ramp cards to bridge the gap. But a Yorion deck might not be applying too much pressure, and then we have time to set up Karn to draw some more cards, and then Moonsilver Key can also get all sorts of goodies. For now, play Ironcrag. Next turn we could also play an Archway potentially, although then I'm not casting Karn, so drawing another land would be more useful. Alright, can still cast a Guardian Idol. Is that better than playing Key? Could play Key and immediately activate it. I think I'm happy just playing the Idol. And then Archway. Pick up Demolition Fields. Next turn we untap with potentially 6 mana, which is enough for Hadron. As we see a Realm Warden from our opponents. The next non-creature spell costs 2 more to cast. Well, I guess we're not casting the Hadron yet. Could now play a 6 mana Karn, I guess. And then just make a Karnstruct, which would be a 3/3. Possible they can remove it, but then we still don't lose Karn to an attack. Flickering the Realm Warden with Yorion's gonna be annoying too, since we'll get taxed once again. And a Channeler can just bounce our token. Okay. So yeah, lots of powerful threats to flicker with Yorion next turn. But I could now cast Ugin. And that's a cast trigger, so even if they have like a wash away, we'll still get to exile one of their things. And with the mana into Moonsilver Key, I could potentially exile something else. So let's start with maybe the Channeler still, although, nah, I think Realm Warden is more annoying. Our opponent's got a flicker effect here. Fair enough. So then, if I were to make mana, I can still cast a Convert, since that's a creature. And then exile a Realm Warden or Channeler. Same decision, but slightly different board state. Dealing with a first striker, I guess, does make sense, so we can protect Karn a bit better. And if they feel so inclined to bounce Ugin, we don't really mind recasting it and getting the trigger. So opponent's getting to bounce something, find a plains, and bounces Ugin. But yeah, it feels like we can recover from this, especially with Forsaken Monument 2 doubling our mana. So how do we want to proceed? Karn keeps plussing, nothing too exciting to get back. Are they gonna give us the Chain Veil or Artificer? Artificer is another Ugin trigger, so they go for Chain Veil. So Ugin's 9 mana. So then I plus, and then I can still cast Moonsilver Key, so we exile both of their creatures. If I go with Forsaken Monument, tapping the Convert first, then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4 mana left. Yeah, that's not quite as exciting. So Ugin it is. And then we can even sacrifice Moonsilver Key. Yeah, this feels pretty disgusting. But then again, I don't feel bad about it since we're up against a Yorion deck. And here, anything we particularly want. Could just go for a land drop, honestly. And make it a Darksteel Citadel. So we won't miss our land drop next turn. Impersonator. Copies Ugin. Luckily cannot exile or colorless things with the ability. But it also, I guess, applies to us not being able to take out Ugin very easily. But yeah, getting to untap with Chain Veil here is pretty sweet. So, step 1 might be Forsaken Monument. Exile one of your things. And then we play Chain Veil. Exile one of your things. And then we still have enough mana to activate. Which lets us plus twice to set up the ultimate. That seems fine. And then Karn in the meantime can make a construct to pressure Ugin. And I guess plus. Should have maybe plussed first and then minused. And then I'll hang on to the Walker. Okay. Opponent does get to untap with a lot of mana themselves. So we'll see if they have a mass bounce effect here. Metamorph. Enters as a copy of Chain Veil. So I guess our opponent can +2 and then -11. But how many colorless non-land cards do they have? I guess we're about to find out. Was not expecting our opponent to ultimate before we did. They might have a Wandering in there, that would make sense. Portal to Phyrexia. Alright, so some decent cards. Ooh, and Immortal Sun. Prevents us from activating Planeswalkers, that's annoying. So they got to ultimate and we didn't. Invasion, exile no-land permanent. That isn't exactly 2 colors, so they get rid of the monument. Yeah, that was a pretty effective Ugin ultimate, all things considered. Especially with the Immortal Sun. So our opponent's not playing any Planeswalkers themselves. We still have Ugin's passive, but of course all these cards are colorless. So we'll need to find a different way to progress our plan. Chain Veil's also going to start hurting us now, since we're not going to get to activate our Planeswalkers. So quite flavorful. Alright, so step 1 might be Fleshraker. How much mana are we working with? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Could of course just cast Kozilek. Well, their opponent's going to start reanimating stuff. Sundering Titan at least cannot take out our lands. But yeah, it's still a big body. They could also go with the Impersonator to copy stuff. Such as, I guess, Portal to Phyrexia, so they can kind of just keep looping those. That's a problem. How do we fight through this? Yeah, I somehow need to get rid of the Immortal Sun. Finding Ulamog, for instance, would be able to get rid of it. So we'll maybe start here. Try and draw some cards. And then manifest some of our things. Found Emrakul. Alright, I guess that's it for now. But yeah, I guess our opponent's getting Impersonator back, copy Portal now. Get rid of all 3 creatures. No, goes for Convert. So they're maybe saving the Impersonator for later. Or they can just flicker Portal with Yorion. And the Invasion as well. Yeah, that's not great. They kept the Portal in play. Get rid of Kozilek. Chainveil's hurting them too, at least. Well, now we get to reap the rewards from Ugin's passive. So we can exile their stuff. Sire is kind of whatever here. Start with Thassa. If they have a flicker effect for creatures, they wouldn't be able to flicker Thassa as easily. Counter Hadron, but Thassa still exiled. Maybe try Fleshraker next. That works.
Preparation yields success.
And then maybe should have tried something else, because now Fleshraker is potentially vulnerable. But we can always animate like a Guardian Idol or a Mishra's Foundry in response to a Portal trigger. No attacks. Opponent now goes for Impersonator. Copying Portal. Alright, so at least they won't have Impersonator left as an option. Yeah, maybe should have animated Guardian Idol in response. Now our opponent's got Invasion of Gobakan to look at our hands. And makes our Emrakul more expensive. And they're gonna finish off Karn. And that's fine. Nope, opponent goes for Ugin instead. On the off chance that we can remove the Immortal Sun. And Mindstone draws. So the counterspell was from Key to the Archive, also good to keep in mind. Now of course Inventor Sphere could also tutor something up, but an Ulamog's not bad to cast. Although if our opponent's going to counter it, then they'll get it back with Portal to Phyrexia as a problem. I guess there's already Fleshraker that they can get back. So lots to consider. Yeah, casting Ulamog is still decent, since we get to exile a bunch of their stuff. But yeah, the Annihilator could backfire. I guess we can always answer it with our own Portal, but then it becomes a game of portals trying to steal Ulamog. So I don't know if that's something I'm interested in playing. Maybe we just Inventor Sphere, try and find an answer for Immortal Sun. But we might have to flush out some counter spells first. Exile your invasion.
Heed my counsel.
Play a Nettle Cyst.
My resources are yours.
And we could Cornucopia, or we could save it to trigger Ugin. And then end of turn I'm maybe looking to sack Inventor's Fair. Our opponent still doesn't want to get the Sundering Titan, or else they would have to blow up their own lands. And Walker, I guess, still survives thanks to the +1/+1 from Immortal Sun. So they could also use it as a mana sink. And yeah, the colorless permanents are difficult to remove. Opponent replays Yorion. So thinking of answers to Immortal Sun, Cityscape Leveler comes to mind as an artifact. Resolving it is going to be the problem. And now Impersonator can also copy something else. So they can set up some nasty loops. So this is the Impersonator. Opponent gets rid of Ugin with the invasion. Draws with the Mightstone. And gets to use Key to the Archive to potentially find another counterspell or extra turn card. And then we lose our creature to Portal to Phyrexia. Yeah, we're pretty far behind. So Leveler at least is on cast, so that can potentially get rid of Immortal Sun. Although we did lose Ugin now, so I don't get to reap the rewards right away. So start with Leveler, I guess. Opponent answers Chainveil. Walker dies. And I get to plus Karn. Unless there's something I want to get back. Not really.
Good choice.
Alright, so the game goes on. What are we getting back with Portal? Hanger back, that's gonna die instantly. And Sundering Titan, alright, they're going for it. Possible they've got some extra turn cards lined up to just win the game here. They can target their own Hallowed Fountain twice, so they didn't have to blow up 2 lanes. So Karn down. Gonna make them work to answer the Cityscape Leveler. Alright, we get to untap. And Emrakul, the Promised End, is pretty sweet. Do I have the mana to cast Ugin and Emrakul in the same turn? I doubt it. So we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is essentially 6 mana. So then we're 2 mana short at least. Well, maybe the Promised End is a good starting point. Or we can do a turn of Ugin just to clean things up. And then next turn set up our Emrakuls. Start with the germ.
Preparation. Success.
And then I'll just draw a card.
Have sown discord, and they shall reap my
Cast a terminal.
focus. Breathe and heed my counsel.
If I trade Leveler, they can get it back with Portal. It wouldn't trigger, at least. Maybe that's still okay, just to get rid of a Portal. And then make sure not to get Metamorph in the graveyard. Or we can just chill, which is also reasonable. And then just pass here. Possible they've got a bunch of creatures in hand they don't want to cast because of our Emrakul. But yeah, end of turn Cyclonic Rift is pretty effective. So everything back to hands. Gonna have to discard to hand size a bunch. And possible they have those extra turn cards lined up. So discard at 5 cards. Well, I guess some of my ramp cards need to go. Yeah, probably have to pull the trigger on Emrakul if we get to untap again. Says no to a Swords to Plowshares. I'll replace Yorion. And Impersonator goes for Key to the Archive this time. Alright, it's go time. Opponent counters Emrakul, but the trigger resolves. So how much damage can we do now? Opponent gets some portal triggers. So I can just target Walker twice. Wait a minute. I can just decline to pay for Pact of Negation and our opponent will lose the game on the spot. Wow. Well, did not think we were gonna win the game in this way, but yeah, I'll take it. What a game. Our opponent got to Ultimate or Ugin, whereas we didn't. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Chatterfang. So black-green Squirrel Sacrifice deck. Can also set up various infinite combos. Our hand has some ramp, but not much. Fleshraker needs to survive. Can also trigger with a Walker. This one's borderline. Devour of Destiny in our opener does help somewhat, since we can find a land with it. And we're on the play. I think we can still do better. Don't want to rely too much on creatures that might get taken out. This one is fine. And then maybe Blast Zone will scare them. So we don't have to face too many 1-drops. Mind Spike can take away one of our 2-mana ramp cards, but we have a redundant one, so it takes Karn instead. That's okay, we don't really need him. Mightstone also a good draw. Even though it doesn't ramp out Ugin, it can still draw 2 and set up our other artifacts. So now Solemn would be the most efficient play. Get a Wastes. And the Mightstone we can also cast after deploying Mightstone and Weakstone. If they play their commander, I probably have to remove it, since it can potentially go off out of nowhere. Alright. Name Eldrazi. Possible they have a protection spell, but we're about to find out how that works. Okay, so we're empty-handed, but Ugin can draw us additional cards. So don't hate my spot. And then if our opponent runs out any colored permanents, they're just gonna get exiled. So they've got 5 mana here. They could redeploy Chatterfang, but that just runs into Ugin. So they're kind of between a rock and a hard place. A mana rock and a hard place, you could say. Ooh, Besiege the Mirror, so they are casting it with Bargain, sacking Utopia Sprawl. So I'm curious to see what they're tutoring for. Does definitely point towards a combo build of Chatterfang, so it's important that we keep answering it. Possible they've got a way of blowing up multiple artifacts. Alright, Necro, I guess just drawing a million cards is their answer to the situation. Blowing up Necro with Ugin doesn't necessarily benefit me, but might still go for it. Okay, so our opponent's gonna get to untap with a full grip, and then they'll need to find a way to combo off or deal with Ugin. So they only drew 5 or 6 here, but they will have to discard to hand size. And those cards are getting exiled. Alright. Ugin will be plussing. Maybe we can work our way up towards a -11 ultimate. And can still cast this one. Seems worth it, even though we don't get to exile anything else. Can also maybe use Urza's Cave to tutor up additional lands, which in turn can tutor up more stuff. Phyrexian Tower represents an extra mana, and they did have a Sheoldred's Edict. But yeah, now with the Palladium Mirror, it's not too difficult to redeploy. The rest sees a basic wastes. And a Soul Cauldron can also be part of a combo. And that one we won't be able to exile. But Chain Veil is kind of exciting. So let's see, play Ugin. Can cast Chain Veil, but I think I'll be 1 mana short of activating it. If I were to make mana with Ugin, that is. So I guess we'll just draw instead. And then Cornucopia, I guess I'll cast next turn and just deploy the Chain Veil now. And hit you for 2. Opponent is down to 10. So it doesn't take much to cross the finish line. No creatures for Cauldron to exile. So yeah, they've got a lot of work to do here. Bitter Triumph, alright, another answer to Planeswalkers. They're about to run out of those. These are usually the 2 I play my decks, Edict and Triumph, since they're pretty cheap and versatile. Alright, the Woodland could maybe turn into something out of the graveyard, but I guess Necro got exiled. And we can still recast Ugin. And then I will be able to activate Chain Veil. Goodbye, Llanowar Elves. Alright, opponent's gonna Once Upon a Time, that's fine. Fiend Artisan is not gonna get a chance to do much. So we'll make mana. Activate Chain Veil plus. So next turn I can maybe plus and then -11, which would be pretty fun to see. If our opponent sticks around. I guess I'll keep Solomon defense on the off chance that Woodland turns into a creature here, since I'm trying to set up our Ugin ultimate. So there's Artisan. And do we get to ultimate? It's in their hands. With the tower they can sack Fiend Artisan, so they can still get access to it with Soul Cauldron. So they might be able to tutor something up. But I'm just immediately going for the -11 here. Do we get there? Opponent says good game. And I'm just going for it here. Click as many things as possible. Submit before our opponent concedes. And then start casting stuff. Anchors of Eternity. Get an extra copy. Not that it matters. Cast an Ulamog. Start exiling stuff. Alright, and our opponent scoops it up, but at least we get to see the ultimate in action. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Davriel, mono black control. Our hand has a few too many top-end threats, I feel. Even though Devour is helpful in finding more ramp. I guess never mind, now that we have Ugin's Labyrinth, we can pitch one of those expensive cards, and that'll help us ramp. We have 2 lands that's Scry or Surveil. So, as far as hands with a lot of top-end go, this one's pretty good. And then I have to decide between maybe a Mind Stone or a Might Stone. Might Stone doesn't ramp out Ugin, so I kind of prefer Mind Stone here. And then let's see. Play Labyrinth, pitching against mono black. This one we can cast at 7 mana. These are a little more pricey. So maybe we pitch like a Leveler. Since I could see wanting to cast Kozilek with the mana from Ugin to refuel. And then, yeah, turn 1 Transformer, next turn cast Mind Stone, we get to Scry. So we're off to a decent start. Opponents got to duress, luckily no targets. We get to untap with 4 mana on turn 2, which is pretty ridiculous. Paradox Engine is not going to do much for us here. Even though it can eventually be very powerful. And then we'll pass. So next turn I have 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So we're inching ever closer to Ugin. And don't need to show them that we have a land. Kozilek, Broken Reality. Is that ambitious here? 4, 5, 6, 7... I mean, once we resolve Ugin, we can cast all of these. Problem is, if they have an answer to Ugin, it might take me a while to get up to 8 or 9 mana. So it's probably overkill. If we cast Kozilek the Great Distortion, we're probably in good shape already. Opponent casts Davriel, which we can just exile with Ugin. But they're probably going to get some value with the -2.
My services are not cheap.
Wouldn't be able to exile Arcane Signet, since that's colorless. So our opponent draws 3. Not bad. And the emblem doesn't matter at the moment. Could also just cast a Devourer instead of Ugin. But I want to get this in play so we can potentially ramp next turn. Exile Davriel, and for now we'll just be drawing a card.
Belongs to the patient. Equilibrium must
Find a Guardian Idol. So just casting this with Ugin in play can exile another permanent. And yeah, looks like they have Hero's Downfall to destroy our Planeswalker. Was to be expected, but we'll manage. So this turn, yeah, I'm probably just deploying some ramp artifacts. And then yeah, I can check out some of our lands as well that we might be able to activate. So we're not quite at the city's blessing yet, but I could gain life for each colorless creature I control. I guess that doesn't do much. But yeah, next turn we'll be able to cast a Kozilek potentially, as our opponent plays Davriel once again.
These negotiations are better to deal with me than with demons.
Okay. Time for Ugin, perhaps? Or we start with Kozilek and play Ugin next turn. How much do we care about Davriel sticking around for an extra turn? Not that much. And this can help us counter future spells. Or potentially find something cheap that we can cast with Ugin in play. Okay. So we've got a 0 mana card, 7, 9, and 12. So wouldn't be able to counter any cheap removal spells. Opponent minuses Davriel once again.
These are my terms and my...
So their emblems include whenever you draw a card, gain 2 life, and creatures get -1 power. Now they get to return a creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield, and I guess Shieldred was in there. That's pretty good. So Shieldred's going to force us to sacrifice unless we maybe activate a Guardian Idol in response. So I'll put a stop. Midnight Sky is also pretty strong. So yeah, I'll attempt to save Kozilek by animating Guardian Idol. Might backfire if they have some spot removal for it. Alright, so take our draw. And then now we wouldn't mind resolving Ugin to clear some of the opponent's stuff. Scry with the Grey Havens, keep another Ugin. And then probably need to start with Shieldred. There's going to be a small window where they might have Planeswalker removal. And this is an exile effect, so it would be a clean answer to the Midnight Sky. But Shieldred is more problematic. Heartless Act to destroy Kozilek will resolve. And then probably fine to make a Construct with a -2. We'll keep Cornucopia as another removal spell. But yeah, we've got some nice finishers we can cast now. Power Word Kill answers our creature. And a Playcrafter can answer a Planeswalker. I'll keep Ugin since it's getting pretty pricey to redeploy. Alright, so this could make mana, or we could plus and work up towards an ultimate, which could also be fun. Don't want to cast too many spells, otherwise we're kind of wasting our passive ability. But yeah, casting another Ugin seems fine. And then perhaps we'll sink some mana into Cornucopia. Alright, and our opponent has seen enough. Yeah, that's just too much for them to handle. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Lumra, mono-green, landfall ramp. And our hand's a little bit too top-heavy. We'll need some cheaper ramp cards. This I could try. Still need a third land, but Paradox Engine's also quite synergistic. Can also help untap Bankbuster, so we can activate it multiple times in the same turn. And then we've got the Surveil from Conduit Pylons to try and find a land. Karn is good, but yeah, land is too important. found the land. So play Bankbuster. And then next turn, one of our 3-drops. Probably want to keep Cornucopia in hand, since it's a bit more flexible. And then even if I fail to draw a land, I can still play a 3-drop, activate Bankbuster, and maybe hit my land drop that way. We did not. Okay, at least our opponent's not off to an explosive start. But they might have some Naturalize effect. Boseiju, and the awkward thing about Boseiju is that it doesn't allow us to get basic wastes. So that's an important rules interaction to be aware of. So this just straight up destroy one of our things for free. Now an Archroot's Charm gets rid of our relic. Well, at least we've got other ramp cards. Although I'm still tempted to activate Bankbuster to try and draw into a land. Although if I miss, we waste our whole turn. Still gotta try. Alright, and then now play Idle or Convert. So we're back on track. Our opponent did have a lot of interaction, but I guess they made up for it by not having the most explosive opening. Although they're also looking at Dust Bowl potentially, which in combination with Conduit can also try and strip minus every turn. At least they won't be able to channel Boseiju over and over. So we need to make it count. If I cast Paradox Engine now, I guess it's nice to have him play. Then they can go after my lands, but I'll still have my other artifacts. They might just cast Lumra next turn. So yeah, I think we just try and cast as many mana-producing artifacts as possible then. So if I play this for x equals 1, I can still cast a Convert afterwards. And then we're going to be in good shape to cast Ugin. So time for Lumra. Nope, Primeval Titan getting 2 lanes of their choice. Okay. At least Conduit, despite being an artifact, is still green, so we can exile it with Ugin. So we'll see what we can come up with here. They might go for more fetch lanes to synergize with Lumra. Maybe a Castle Garenbrig to help them out. It's going to be a Lair of the Hydra and Nykthos. Nykthos is not going to be too impactful once we deal with our permanents here. So if I cast Ugin first, I guess that's the only way I can get it in play here. Exile your Primeval Titan. And then I just make mana to cast Paradox Engine. Exile Conduit. And pass a turn. Convert can protect Ugin. Kogla can fight a Convert. Don't want to make mana response since it costs me life. And this is 2 mana to activate. Also 3 to crew. So they could still animate a small Hydra to go after Ugin, but a Great Henge is a little bit more impactful. And then could still make a 1/1 Hydra. Fair enough, but next turn we'll still get to exile Kogla and the Great Henge. So let's do this properly. Start by activating Bankbuster maybe. Or do we want to cast Ulamog? I guess that's also an option. That can go after their lanes. Yeah, let's see here. So these can tap for mana. So I can cast Ulamog, untap, and take it from there. And then we want to go after Lair of the Hydra and maybe Dust Bowl. And then the Ugin trigger gets rid of Kogla for now. We get to untap.
Belongs to the patient.
I'll draw with Bankbuster. Finding a Cold Steel Heart, which I can still cast. So then Ugin is free to +2 now. And we'll be able to get rid of the Great Henge as well, while untapping more stuff. Alright, that was a good turn. And our opponent scoops it up. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We have a little bit of ramp, but not much. Facing Nicol, Bolas, the Ravager, so we can expect a lot of interaction. So then File's not a bad ramp card to have. If we're empty-handed, it can still provide value. The One Ring, of course, is quite powerful. If our opponent's planning to play some discard spells and counter spells. So could be convinced to keep this. But we also could be weak to a hand that maybe ramps out a Planeswalker, since we're not ramping out our own Ugin all that quickly. So maybe I still take a mulligan. Alright, I'll try this. Mostly relying on Forsaken Monuments. Inquisition takes our treasure map. And Inquisition of Kozilek seeing Kozilek is pretty fitting. So now we're just hoping to find some 3 mana ramp card. Can maybe use the Scry to find it. Thought-Knot Seer, probably not needed. Even though it does maybe fill out our curve. And Cornucopia was a much better draw. Although may not resolve. Don't need the Walker. So if this resolves, we're setting up Forsaken Monument for next turn. Opponent says no. Okay. Nicol, Bolas. Gotta discard Kozilek, I'm afraid. And then we're not doing anything right now. So that's where keeping a Thought-Knot Seer could have paid off, but then they would have just countered it, I guess. Do they have an answer left to the monuments? Given that they shocked in their lands, I'm guessing they do. So then we wouldn't mind drawing a land for Ugin. It remains. Alright, at least we get to try again. But we are getting tempoed out here. Opponent gets to improve their hand while attacking for 6, making treasure. They're getting close to transforming Nicol, Bolas. In fact, they can do so right now. So what does this one do again? Can draw, deal 10 damage to creatures or planeswalkers, or reanimate creatures with a -4. I guess there was a reason not to discard Kozilek. Now, Ugin could take out Nicol, Bolas, or we can stick to the monuments, and then next turn I'm scheduled to take 11. But we might be able to stabilize from there. Yeah, Kozilek's gonna be a problem since it's colorless, so we cannot exile it with Ugin. Search for Ascanta's fine. Alright, let's make even more mana. Try Ugin. If I Echoes first and they counter it, then I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Still enough mana for Ugin afterwards. Yeah, I guess we'll try Echoes first. Then if they somehow want to keep a counterspell for Ugin, we'll still get the copy. So then we don't care. Get a bunch of triggers. Exile, I want to say Nicol, Bolas for starters. And then Reflection.
Heed my counsel.
Opponent does try and counter or stifle the trigger. I guess that works. So that's why it held priority when we played the Labyrinth. They could have countered that trigger.
If my intervention is required,
I'll keep the token Ugin.
our goals align, so you have my...
And let's see. This one I guess can afford to draw. But I'll cast this first in case they're holding removal. So we get the extra exile from Ugin. Nicol Bolas is gone, Shaman's gone. And our opponent counters. But yeah, we're still gonna get an extra Ugin copy, so I don't think we care. So then we can gain 3 draw card. And this one can make a blocker for Kozilek, that's probably the safest. Could also deal with Search for Ascanta, but they can have it.
Secrets manifest before you.
Even though in hindsight it was maybe more important than dealing with a random 2-2, but also wanted to make sure we didn't just die here. So they can finish off my token Planeswalkers, but I still have a very castable Eye of the Storms in the command zone. So they actually keep our commander alive. And they found a counterspell, so that's good. Although Cityscape Leveler now an answer to Kozilek. Okay, so this one can draw. Find a Lotus. Yeah, we've got several options. Can also maybe pick up our Breaker of Creation again. And there's also Inventor's Fair that can shoot our stuff up. Can scry one twice. Might want to shuffle though. But yeah, Leveler is happening on Kozilek. And then we also get the Ugin trigger to deal with the Spirit. Even if they counter, that's okay. And then I guess we'll take it from there. Yeah, Monument plus Echoes of Eternity is also a combo. We get a million triggers. Alright, and that'll do it. Awesome. So we get to see our colorless Ugin Brawl deck in action, and yeah, the card is totally ridiculous once you get it on the battlefield, one of the more powerful colorless commanders you can be running nowadays, but I will say it's also getting matched appropriately. You're not facing any super easy matchups if you pick Ugin as your commander, so you do have to be prepared for some tough opposition, but that's a good thing since the games are going to be a little bit more competitive, there's going to be more back and forth, and we get to play some epic games today, because yeah, I definitely remember some past expansions adding a new commander to the format, which ended up being very powerful, but it still got matched against some of the beginner decks, and so you would get some pretty lopsided matchups. That doesn't seem to be the case with Ugin. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.